Welcome to the Layman's Law School. How's everybody doing today?
I'm doing marvelous.
I'm getting marvelous, but right now I'm in a little bit of run around, but I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there.
All right.
I'm not going to bring the energy down. I always bring it up.
We're going to bring it up, just like the mountain we're going to talk about today.
There you go.
Right?
Good segue.
So we're going to ask the question today, can a mountain have the same legal rights as a corporation?
And on top of that, we're going to not talk about the mountains of the Rockies, but we're going to talk about the Bud Light instead of the Coors Light. Because the can is already blue, you don't have to wait for the mountains to turn blue. There you go. There's your segue.
Okay.
But, Sean, will you please explain why we only have two?
We only have two because Reed brought three and already drank one of them.
That's not true. Erroneous.
The
on all
reason
counts.
why
Erroneous.
Lindsay today will be partaking in my beverage of choice.
Yeah.
High Noon grapefruit, the true flavor of nothing but juice and vodka, is because yesterday was her birthday.
That's right.
She shares a birthday with Reed's daughter.
That's true.
And we're celebrating that today with her. So happy birthday, Lindsay.
We've just been celebrating all kinds of stuff on our episodes lately.
I mean, I feel like it's just you celebrating Lindsay all the time. Where's Shawnee's celebration?
Love this, John. Cheers.
Cheers. And we'd be remiss to say that we don't have Chase Hawk here with us today.
But he's celebrating too.
He's a busy guy.
He's celebrating too. He's moving into a new house.
I know, but he's once again missing out on Bud Light, and which I think I'm officially trying. I mean, I think he feels like I'm running him off at this point.
He's in the process of moving, but I think that when we leave here, we should pick up like a 30-pack of Bud Light and drive straight to his house.
Housewarming gift.
Housewarming.
Got it.
That's what everybody needs. Beer and pizza when you're moving, right? So, yeah, absolutely.
Well, we've reached an age where the beer and pizza is no longer the hook.
No, I'll go drink the beer and eat the pizza, but I'm not going to move.
I'll come check out your place and all, but no, I'm not lifting the box.
You give me a tour.
I strained a calf just playing flag football with 6, 7, 8-year-olds. So I think I'm out on the moving.
Yeah.
It's not great.
Yeah. Well, today we're going to ask that interesting question of whether, like we said, a mountain can have the same legal rights as a corporation. So New Zealand just granted Mount. Oh, we're gonna have some trouble with these names today. You know how we are with names, but
Taranaki.
Yeah, look at you, John.
Taranaki.
Yeah. So Mount Taranaki got legal personhood, and what does that mean? In U.S., corporations are legally considered people, but why? And so, how do these different legal concepts shape law, society, and the environment? So stick around, and we're going to figure out how all that works, right?
Maybe.
At least try to.
There you go. Because it is a long and treacherous road, as the Beatles said, their song, something like that. Yep. Long and winding road, I believe, is that one.
Yep. So I'll give a quick summary of the story of what's happening in New Zealand. So recently they declared Mount
Taranaki.
There we go. Mount Taranaki, a legal person, meaning it has rights, responsibilities, and guardians protecting it. This follows similar designations for the Whanganui River and the Teura.
Whanganui.
Well, you can pronounce it that with the W or with the and so the other one was the Teura forest under the Maori traditions. All right, so for the rest of this, I think we're gonna refer to them as the mountain, the river, and the forest.
There
right?
You go.
Okay.
Mountain, river, and forest.
Okay, great. And so basically, what's happened is they view nature as an ancestor, not a property, and so protecting natural entities from human exploitation using legal tools. And I actually watched, in preparation for this, on my way here, I listened to a YouTube documentary on the river, actually. And it's pretty interesting. I mean, the way that they are approaching this by basically saying, like, look, we're not crazy over here in New Zealand. We're not saying that the mountain is a person, sure. But it should have the same legal rights as a person.
That's how it always starts. I mean, it's you're going to get pushback when you have stuff like this because it's the clickbait is, these crazy people are making a mountain a person. And it does work because you got the old expression mountain out of a molehill and all this.
Sure.
And so you got all kind of puns you can play with, and but it really is the same thing as the reasoning, and you can agree or disagree with it. But this is the reasoning is similar to with the reasoning with corporations becoming a person under legal entity is that there's a lot of factors, but the main one is this can get passed down. So like if me and Sean are partners, right? And so in a corporation, and before a corporation was looked at, and both of us, die or whatever, then it's just gone. There's no such thing anymore.
Sure.
But since as a corporation, it's a living, breathing entity, it continues on without us. And I think that's what they're trying to do here is, we know it's not a person, but if it's given the rights of a person and it doesn't ever go away, then it's a living, breathing, so to speak, thing for eternity is the plan is what they're trying to do.
So they're trying to save the environment.
Yeah, and it's a legal way to do it.
And anytime you start off with the the argument that we're not crazy over here,
but
that was literally like one of the things was like court proceedings or whatever, where the guy said, I know this sounds a little like hokey. He didn't say hokey because I don't think they probably say hokey in New Zealand, but whatever the New Zealand equivalent is of that. But he was like, look, we get it. Let me explain.
Yeah. Well, and
we get that it sounds a little outlandish. I believe is the word.
It's not surprising, for news like this to be coming, out of New Zealand. New Zealand is what I would consider, and probably most people would consider, a very liberal, anti far right, political type climate over there. They're one of the, countries that, recognize, same sex relationships and marriage very early on, before, like even in like the 80s type thing, well before the rest of the world was. So they would probably be seen, to most people, as a very liberal, socially liberal at least, type country with some very advanced and liberal views, on things.
And you also got the fact that you got indigenous people that are fighting against the people that, however you want to say it, moved in, came there, I don't know. But so those cultures are kind of fighting each other. And I'm sure if you look online, there's when their cabinet, I guess, or their senate or whatever you call it there, met, and they had that big cheer and all that stuff when it was the indigenous people, making their point known and that kind of stuff. So I think you're going to have a lot of that, and their beliefs, and the indigenous people are, like you said, the land is their ancestors. And so when you say that to somebody who doesn't grow up in that or doesn't believe that, then obviously that sounds crazy. But if that's their culture, and that's kind of, yes, they don't believe that the mountain can walk away, right? And so and you have that battle of kind of the online battle of protecting what you believe in, and then the other side of that's going to say you're crazy, and so that's what we see online. But legally, I think they're doing, the indigenous people are doing what they're supposed to do to protect the mountain. Like, this is the way you should do it. You shouldn't go out there and loot and burn stuff or whatever. They're legal. If you want to get something done, you go through it legally, and they've done that, and evidently it's working. I don't know the ups and downs or the negatives and positives for that area, but I do applaud them for going through the action in the way that they've gone through it.
Okay. Do you think that granting legal personhood to nature works in other parts of the world?
I don't think it's generally necessary, at least in our American system of justice.
Right. There's other protections.
Yeah, I mean, most of our, a lot of our stuff is already protected in one form of another. Whether it's a national park, a state park, a conservation area type thing, and in order to enforce the rights of this so-called person, mountain, park, stream, or anything, there's avenues that the average person can. What we have to have in order to, enforce a right is standing in a legal system.
And that's a great point. If Reed, I skipped over that. That's a great point.
If Reed gets involved in a car accident tomorrow and it's somebody else's fault, I can't go and file a lawsuit, Sean Merzlack versus Betty Jones, who ran in the back of Reed, because the court would say, I don't have standing. I don't have a dog in the fight. Yep. Why am I here?
Everything you said might be right, but it doesn't matter.
Reed, would have standing to file a lawsuit in that case. And when it comes to, rivers, mountains, national parks, state parks, things like that, lakes, the way that a person in America can get standing is, either organizations that represent that type of thing, or you just have to, the organization itself might not have standing, but they will find an individual who is part of their organization that does. You know,
Right.
if you've visited Yellowstone Park before and you plan to visit there in the future and something is occurring that is damaging that, then a court could see you as having standing because that's affecting your rights that are being, you know, even
to
though
visit your friend the park.
Well, the parks are protected. So if it's not protected, you don't have that. But if the parks are protected, then if you're a visitor to it, then you can have standing, right?
which would be different from me filing a lawsuit alleging that something happened to me that actually happened to Reed.
Right.
This is saying, you know, one of my rights is being infringed upon as a result of, you know, what is adversely affecting this national park or lake or stream or mountain. You know,
so I feel like this is a dumb question, but the point of the show, right?
I'm sure it's not dumb.
But so that in some ways, is that how it protects people who protest, like when there are like against environmental whatever, like
it's kind of yes and no. So that you got a little bit of apples and oranges because it depends on what you're protesting. You know, if you're protesting something that's not protected already, then they're essentially like the New Zealand case is trying to get standing.
Sure.
You know, because you don't. If it's not a protected thing, then you really are talking about bodily injury and stuff like that. You can't bring if there's not a law to protect it, then you don't really have standing to protect it unless you own the land. You know? So some of those are trying to get the land to be protected, right? And so to earn standing for people that go to see the land. And then you have other ones exactly what Sean's talking about is like
it's a very odd thing to think about it, but when you think about it legally, you have to think about, you know, who is affected by whatever decision is being made or use of the land that's being made or misuse or, you know, whatever the complaining thing is, who is affected by that, whether or not they have an individual right to assert, you know, some type of claim for what is occurring. And we have, you know, many cases. There's many cases that go up on appeal that the appeals court says, you know, even if what you said is true, you don't have standing to assert this type of thing. So we look at a lot of cases and a lot of the very famous cases that we see at the United States Supreme Court level are people that were individually picked to represent this type of lawsuit.
Right.
You know, if Sean Merzlach has a problem with a you know, political problem with a gun law that's in, you know, New York. Well, I don't live in New York. These gun laws don't affect me or anything like that. I don't have standing to sue on behalf of because I think that this is wrong.
Yeah.
But if I went up to New York and started interviewing people and, you know, bump into, you know, Joe
Price
Blow.
Dunaway.
Yeah, Price Dunaway. And says, well, yeah, I was actually up here and I tried to purchase a handgun and they wouldn't allow me to because of these laws.
Yeah.
Well, then now I have a person who, you know, may have standing to assert, you know, a claim for their rights being violated type thing.
For the viewers and listeners, Price Dunaway is who?
That's my father-in-law. Great man. He I don't know how he does it, but he
Before
travels.
people started Googling to figure out who
he's
he
a good
is.
dude. He great guy, but he works in New York Monday through Friday and lives in Augusta Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
For tax purposes, he is a resident of Georgia.
That's I honestly don't know that. I don't ask. I don't know.
All right, let's always spread his business on the podcast.
I don't know.
Okay, well, let's switch over a little bit here, you know, because before you say all this sounds crazy of, you know, hey, a mountain is a person, here in the U.S., we already give legal personhood to something else, and it's not a river or a mountain. Would you believe that corporations have had more legal rights in America than some groups of people? Let's talk about it.
Yeah,
of course.
It doesn't surprise me a bit. And like I said, when we started this episode, I said it's a, you know, slippery slope, and it is. And it's not like you can name there's a lot of cases that got it started. I mean, it really started with, I think free speech is how it kind of really got started. Does corporation have free speech and on and on? And then it's built off of that. And, you know, just like a lot of our laws, they go back to, you know, to England, right? And how that kind of worked. And things have changed and our laws changed since then. But when you go to law school, people always think you come out of law school and know what the laws are. You don't know crap. You don't know anything. You just know how the law has gotten to where we are and where it started. And so some of this corporation stuff
7 different reasons why the law was a particular way and why it changed.
Right.
But what is it now?
No clue.
I don't know.
No clue. No clue. But that's, I mean, so you're talking about a long process, and you're talking about, late 1800s to start it. And I think the last one was 2010 was the last real change in what that is. And all those laws from 80 something, 87, maybe the first 86. One. 86. I was close. See, this is pure law school memory.
I know it's on your paper and you're not.
I haven't read it.
Even cheating.
I will admit it. Yeah. And so that went on, and throughout the decade, or the years, it was like you got another little piece, and they kept chipping away, and then in 2010 you had another big one for the corporations, and so all those things. It's not just one case; it's 20 cases, and then a million cases to reaffirm all those cases. So to get a corporation not to be looked at as a person in all different categories that have happened is almost impossible now to get these laws off the books. And credit to the lobbyists for the big banks and the big corporations. They've done a great job because they've tricked the American people to think this is good for them. So here we are.
So before we get too far into our discussion about corporate parenthood or personhood, can define that. Like, what is corporate personhood?
So, I mean, it's essentially like they can act as the same rights that you have. I mean,
I can own property.
Yeah, the corporation can own property. It can pass it down. They can make. I think the 2010 was the one with charitable contributions to politicians. Essentially, anything you can do as a human.
And some of the main things involving the legal work or legal field is a corporation can sue on its own behalf
and be sued.
And be sued. Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, honestly, it's hard to think list everything because it's a. I mean, it's really entity. A person. Like it's just. I mean, what can you do? I mean, it's the same thing. It's almost that point.
You have to think about it.
There's some things I can't do, mountains can do, vice versa.
Like Reed said, it's happened over time.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if you were injured by a corporation some way? And the law said, well, the corporation you can't sue because it's not a person. That person wouldn't have legal standing for you to sue them. And you would have to, give me a list of all the shareholders of this corporation. I'm going to name every single one of them. No. That's not, an efficient way to administer, type justice to people. So, and then with the Citizens United and the political contributions. That was an argument.
That was the latest case, right? From 2010.
An argument over whether or not corporations could donate, to political activities, political campaigns, and whether or not there could be restrictions on that. And the Supreme Court came down and said, no, this is you using your money, whether you're a person or a corporation, that's your form of free speech of supporting your candidates.
But the same thing, Sean, like that. And I think that's what people need to understand. It builds off of each other. So the Supreme Court's looking at that specific issue, and they're relying on the free speech that happened in 1800 and 1880 or 86. So all those things build off of each other. That's what I mean. If you have this thing that we're going to take down corporations having rights as a citizen, the amount of things you have to undo is almost impossible. I don't know how you could do it. And there's some things I agree with, and then there's some things that I vehemently disagree with on a corporation being a person. But this is where we are. So it's like Sean said. I mean, there's some good things that you listed, and there's some bad things that you listed. It's not all good and all bad. But the Supreme Court, this needs to be made importantly clear, is that the Supreme Court is not saying what is best for America. They are saying this is what the law is.
Sure.
They have to follow the law. Yeah. It's not their job to create the law. It's their job to kind of decipher and infer what the law that the courts, the Senate and the House and all that stuff have come and brought a law. They don't make them.
And a little thing called the United States Constitution.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, of course, Sean. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, it's not. They're not sitting in their chambers writing laws up. Like they're
Not all of them.
Yeah, that's true.
Some of them are trying to.
That's true. I'm sorry. Yeah. Let's not go down there.
Whether for one side or the other, I mean, there's some of them that are trying to.
But in theory, that's not their job.
Correct. The judicial branch, their job is to interpret the law and apply the law to facts.
And then when they interpret it, that becomes law. But that's not them writing the law.
Correct.
Like that's what we talk about. We've talked about it a good bit. Is case law. Like that's Supreme Court is case law, but they're not writing the code. They're just interpreting how that works. And then so that's why I give them a little grace on some of these things, is because you have to rely on your previous justices' decisions.
Yeah.
So they didn't make the decision in 1800 or whatever, or 1910 or 1927 or whatever it is, but that's the law, and they have to follow the law.
Okay.
That's my rant for the day.
So what do we think?
Are you becoming informed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I'm telling
that was
you.
a lot, but this is
the research I did beforehand.
There's a lot of stuff moving here. It's hard to get it all in like one little session. But
honestly, I was a little disappointed in my pronunciation of all that, the New Zealand things. I mean, I watched things. I thought I had it down.
I know you get on. Get in the. I did this. I mess up all the time. I mean,
I know.
Whanganui.
Sean can't say a name correctly, so it's fine.
Well, honestly, Sean, you've done great today with the pronunciation.
I think he saw there was a comment that said he messed up a name, and he's been working on it. He's been practicing. He's been looking in the mirror.
That's what keeps us up at night. The troll comments.
Whanganui.
Well, let's talk about the pros and cons of legal personhood for nature. Because I think while, yes, there are protected things in the U.S., for the most part, if you ask the rest of the world, they're probably going to say, well, y'all ain't really protecting your environment too much. You're not, I mean, that's how probably the rest of the world views us. I would
You're talking about viewing the American people?
No, I think that people like in New Zealand will probably be like, well, America's not, they're not protecting their mountains the way we're protecting our mountains. I just think that's probably the perception.
Sure.
Perception's reality, not always the truth, right? So potential benefits of legal personhood are
I mean, it really is just
which I've already talked about, standing in court.
I mean, you get all that, but it's really it's a step up from the protections that we have with national parks and that kind of thing. Don't you think, Sean? I would think it would be like the next level, maybe.
It's just hard for me to wrap.
Strange.
It's hard to wrap my head around it.
Me too.
Because of the way that our system works, our system of justice.
Like a corporation has money coming in and money coming out, and people involved. This is a stationary object.
When I think about it, I think, well, this river that has this personhood,
right? Can you sue the river? If the river kills you?
Well, that's what I would think.
Even not even suing the river, because the river has no assets, no anything.
Maybe they got to give you half the river.
How does the river tell somebody how they were wrong in a certain way? So when I think about it, I think that at least the American legal justice system is probably a better suited. Because it's this river belongs to all of us.
Right.
And how are my rights being affected by what is being done to this river? As opposed to just saying the river can say that the river hurts because it's being polluted.
Right.
No, my rights as someone who wants to swim in the river are being infringed upon because it's being polluted type thing. You know what I mean? I just think about it differently, I guess.
Do too. I mean, because I think about it the same way you do, but it's because that's our laws. But I'm trying to, it's tough for me too. It's just a strange topic just because of like I said, it's not, what are I guess the remedies is what we always look for, the damages and that kind of thing. So let's say you have a claim or whatever against the river. What's your recovery? Like who's paying the recovery? Is there a like when you have
like the river ain't got a bank account, so if you decide to sue it, who's paying you?
Mm.
But you like if somebody passes, you have an estate for the person. Does the river have an estate that somebody is in charge of? Are they a personal representative? I'm just saying.
To your point, the river. This came up in the documentary I watched, but about the river, the Whanganui. I got it right.
You got it.
Okay, but what they were talking about is, so they interviewed this skipper who like drove this coal powered boat
Right.
through the river. And they were asking him, you know, about like how he felt
Is that an
about
alternative fuel vehicle like Reed drives? Coal power?
Well, they did make a point. They're like, how many are there of those are going through the river? He said, oh, this is like only 2 of all of New Zealand. So I was like, oh, wow, the whole entire country only has 2 of these. And this guy drives one. And basically they were like, well, what would you do if the river just decided that you couldn't, that it was polluting it and it was hurting it and you couldn't like skip her anymore?
Strange.
And he was like, well, I guess I'd be disappointed. But he's like, I don't think that makes like not a lot of common sense. And then he, of course, he says not a lot of common sense going around these days, you know, whatever. But then he went on to say, anybody who listens to this and thinks that the river is a living person, like that's silly, but it is a living entity. And I was like, well, okay,
so it's kind of
it's
mixing terminology a little bit, and I think it goes back to exactly what Sean said. Is like, you know, they're more of a liberal country in totality than us, and you could do this in a much better way. But the push of it came from the indigenous people to have it because they look at it as an ancestor. So I understand why it ended up there. I think legally, if their system is similar, and I don't know all the nuances between theirs and ours, but if it's in our system, Sean, you had it dead on, is, you know, you protect it and then you give the rights to the people to have standing to protect what they want out of the mountain or out of the river or, you know, all that, versus they're doing it kind of the exact opposite. You know, it's strange. I don't know.
So, when I think about things like this, I like to think about if there was no one else on the planet.
Solid point.
And just me. And it was just me, and I went to the Mississippi River.
Unfortunately, you try to think about that all the time. You know, I'm starting to worry about you.
I like my fellowship, but I think about how to enforce a right and who's damaged. And if I was the last person on the earth, and I went to the Mississippi River,
right,
and I had tractor trailer after tractor trailer full of oil, and dumped it in the Mississippi River,
right.
No one would be hurt.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Except for maybe me.
Right.
That's what so it's like for them to say that, oh, no, this river is just hurt. No, it would be the people that live around the river, the animals that are in the river that people rely on, things like that.
You keep
so
saying,
that documentary made that point that if you, especially with the river, not the mountain doesn't have any documentaries yet because they just named it.
The river's more interesting because the river moves.
The point was they were like, if the river, whatever the river touches, does that not still become part of the river? So now you're not just talking about a river that became a person. You're talking about everything that it touches, essentially meaning the entire land.
I mean, it takes years and years, but if you watch anything about rivers, I mean, they always start off straight and then they're going to start doing a curve and
meandering.
And then after the curve, after the curves, they start, that little part gets cut off and then it goes back, right? And so if you do that and you follow the years of this river, which it will change, then if the river has rights and it comes on your land and you have rights, like who wins that? Because it's
infringing on your.
It's two people that have a land dispute, and so
I'm gonna immediately notice the deposition of the river.
Absolutely. I want to see what they got to say about this. Why are you coming over?
Are you remaining silent? Oh, you're right against self-incrimination? That is, not good in a civil suit, buddy. River, Mr.
River. I think in New Zealand, though, the Maori people are the ones who speak for the river, right? Yeah, and the mountain and the forest.
That's the indigenous people, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know enough about that sector or whatever they want to call it, or estate, whatever it is. What can they bring? What can they say? What can they, testify to? That's the part I don't know. But it's. I think it is, in my opinion, a little overbroad to give something like this, standing for a person. I think corporations in our laws have gone too far. I think there's certain parts that it needs to have standing, and other parts it doesn't. But I would really not like it if some kind of physical entity had standing rights of a human in America.
Like the Grand Canyon or Yellowstone?
I honestly don't think that's a better way to protect it. I really don't. I just, you you can get, like, people call it technicalities and getting around it and all that stuff, but like Sean just said it, I mean, you just laid it out. If you can't depose the river and they're a person, they lose, right? I mean, because that means everything you think that happens or could happen, they can't deny it. So it doesn't make sense.
It really just goes to
crazy.
the same thing. I mean, they're doing the same thing, but calling it something else.
Yeah.
If they're giving some type of personhood to these inanimate, physical attributes of the earth,
Right.
Yeah.
there's still got to be someone in their laws who represents it.
Yep.
Who has the authority to speak on behalf of it, to file lawsuits on behalf of it, whether it's an organization, a person, a government agency, something like that. So it's the same thing type here. I mean, we have Environmental Protection Agency that can, file lawsuits and enforce regulatory environmental laws upon people and industries and things that are affecting lakes, rivers, streams, whatever the case may be, the land. You as an individual could file a lawsuit based on, somebody, doing damage to the lakes, rivers, land.
Yeah.
Well, here's the flip of that.
Same
Sean.
thing
One
there. It's
question
not
for
that
you. What's
this
your-
mountain is going to go into a courthouse and sign an affidavit.
What about this
complaint.
What about this twist? So, since you give this mountain river personhood, so first of all, you can't recover against the act of God, which is tornadoes, hurricanes, all this stuff. But where's the line on that? If the river changes and moves, that's not really an act of God. It's moving over time and it encroaches on your land.
It's active.
So let's say
nature.
you could bring a case against the river, because evidently you might. Like, who's going to pay for that? Is that there's just so many crazy questions.
I just don't know. Say you win, they have to buy that portion of land that was worth, $50,000.
Well, the government,
What
for
is
us, if they take your land, they have to pay for it.
Exactly.
So that's my question. Is like, what does the river have to pay
There's
for?
got to be some types of currency exchange between.
It has to be
gallons of water and dollars. I don't know. We'll have to figure it out.
Well, I'm just saying, if there's a creek behind my yard, and if it comes up and enters my house, and it's a person, then I want it to be charged with robbery and breaking and entering. So, I want criminal charges.
Well, you got to have damages.
I'm saying it broke into my house. The river did. The river came into my house.
It might increase the value of your property. A little lazy river running through the kitchen.
Oh yeah.
I'm just saying,
Meandering.
it's one thing.
Meandering.
It's one thing to protect a natural landmark, and I agree with that, and I want us to do that. But I think this is a little extreme in the way that. It's just almost like pushing it to a level to shove it in your face, where it doesn't really match what you should be able to do when you can sue a corporation. I don't, like I said, I don't love all the protections I get, but they're still an active, moving, living thing, so to speak. And so all those things we're talking about, you can actually still have the representative for the corporation has to step up to the plate. So I kind of get that, but like, I don't, how do you do it with other stuff?
I think that I'm not as familiar with the New Zealand thing as maybe Lindsay is, who's did a little bit of research on it. But
I became an expert 2 hours ago.
some of these things are very
Not in their names pronounced correctly, but
what's the term for it? More of a
showy,
a showpiece type thing.
yeah.
That they're not. They're trying to.
it's a pacifier.
Yeah, they're trying to show the importance of this thing, and but the law is not actually giving this river these particular rights. It's more of a we're respecting this to the point that we're going to do a declaration.
It's like when Sean got his doctorate from law school. It was just a complimentary doctorate. Like, he didn't go. They just say he was kind of like a celebrity type.
They just wanted me to leave.
I mean, I understand that.
No, but I mean, we see that, and I mean, if people see people getting keys to the city from different because of their contributions to society or the community or things like that,
or celebrities getting they get doctorates all the time from all these schools.
Oh yeah,
and,
there's some that have multiple doctorates from multiple great universities that.
They never step foot in, except for maybe a commencement speech.
That's usually it's a commencement speech,
Yeah, so some of it is very just fluff, to say the least, and recognizing that this is
And I'm sure this is not a coincidence that I don't know. I mean, I don't follow New Zealand law, but it definitely went viral of the cheer and all the Indigenous people cheering at their Senate or whatever they call it.
I'll link that in the description. I'll link the NPR video.
Their Indigenous cheer, and so it's not a coincidence that this happened pretty recently after that. And I think that's probably what it is, Sean. It's they're okay,
symbolic.
Yes, it's more symbolic. And if anything actually happened, I would be surprised if there's ever a case on it. I mean, unless it's the people trying to protect the land. I wouldn't say that But I would say, honestly, if I was living there and that river switched a little bit, which it will, and comes on my property, I'm gonna sue them. I'm gonna sue the river. I'm gonna sue the river. It's on my property.
Who's the river's registered agent? That's what I want to know.
I'm sending it.
Well, let me ask you this, because then we're talking about nature right now, but then I think about particularly personhood being applied to like AI.
Yeah.
Which is probably, and there's a lot of, obviously we've all seen tons of movies about the future and how this is like a thing. And so that begs a question, like, does an advanced AI system deserve to, get personal or get legal personhould?
And so
at what point?
Golly.
Well, I think you can.
That wasn't part of the prep notes. I mean, that's a ball. It's in there.
I did not read them. I did not read the prep notes. I speak from the heart.
I didn't read them either, but I glanced at them and I didn't see the AI portion. But that's something that I haven't even thought about. I mean, it's like,
So that's kind of what's scary to me about the corporations and what I was talking about.
I think
building
on
each other, building on each other. The law builds on each other, and so. This is how all the law works. No matter what you want to argue, whether it be gun control, freedom of speech, all this stuff, it goes back to, well, what was the intent of the law back then? Is there any way they could even imagine AI? So if we're relying on the laws from 150 years ago to apply to the rules of AI, which they never understood, is that what they meant? Is it not? And so that's always going to be the fight, right?
Yeah.
I do think, it's a slippery slope with that. And honestly, I think everybody is well aware that if you got a lot of money, you can probably get a law passed. And so the lobbyists who have the most money are probably going to be the guys who have AI. And so it would not shock me in the slightest if they somehow had AI be a corporation, and so they get the rights of a person, because that's how our government works right now, unfortunately, is if you have enough money, you can get it done.
But I think, all right, so on that note, I would prefer that they were treated in that way. Just from I think half a year ago now we did a podcast about a teenager who committed suicide in Florida.
Yeah.
Because he was chatting with an AI.
That's the slippery slope. It's the single entity that
and his parents are trying to sue.
But you can sue someone else on that. But the creator and all that. So then you start having to go down that slippery slope of that person and being able to sue AI. But then
we always say sue everybody, right? So you can sue the platform and you can sue the AI entity. I think I personally think that would be a huge mistake, but I know it's coming, and we'll see what happens. But I don't have a lot of faith that it wouldn't pass because they got a lot of money. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you.
Tell us how you really feel, Reed.
He always does.
With the AI thing, it's so. I mean, it's so new and so rapidly evolving that it's hard to think of. Yeah. It's hard to think of,
It's hard to think of where it could go.
I write a computer program that is supposed to just go live on its own and devour information and give answers and everything. Mm-hmm. And I set it free. How long am I responsible as a company or an individual who wrote that program for what it does? Whether it be giving bad advice and I do something that hurts me, or whether it convinces a child that he's in love with some robot on the internet and he ends up, and it tells him to kill himself. Or, when does it,
I think, in my opinion, never. Because the problem is once you remove, and the same thing with corporation, the ability to attack the bad actor. And like you can have somebody in a corporation that does horrible, terrible things and nobody else knows about it. They can't get that guy. They have to sue the corporation. And once you remove the bad actor, you're going to have more bad actors. And if you make it where it's just AI gets sued, they're going to be all over the globe and trying to track that down, and then they're going to be going bankrupt every time you sue them. There's no way around it. And so I think you got to keep the actual person attached to it in some form, fashion, to kind of go, look, if you're going to create this, your butt's on the line, so you better make sure it's not going to hurt a bunch of people.
Gotcha.
That's my opinion. Yeah, that's Reed Sanders' law.
No,
it goes for nothing.
Goes for nothing. Things that aren't like we talked about with the poor boy that committed suicide. Yeah. There's things that haven't been addressed that we've never seen. Yeah. That unfortunately we're going to see, and we're going to see. People
you're talking about right now. It's big. Is there's a law that's trying to get passed. I forget which state, but it's essentially the cyberbullying to the next level, and the fact that these people are enticing people or stealing, compromising pictures off of their phones and stuff, and then blackmailing them, and then using these different apps to gain access to these people. Are the people who run the app responsible? Obviously, the person who did the harm is responsible. That's not without question. Yeah. But if you allow that to take place and you own the place in which it happens, are you responsible? In the real world, the physical world, the answer is yes. And in the digital world, that question is still up there. And the thing that scares me the most with young children is the people with the most money in this world are the people that own those digital worlds. And as I said before, generally, the people with the most money can afford the most expensive lobbyist, and the most expensive lobbyists usually can pay the people the most, and those are the people who get elected, and they have to give that money back or favors back.
This is not a political podcast.
Sorry.
But to your point, I mean, cyberbullying, I think, as a mother, that is worrisome to me. I have a 3-year-old, so I got a lot of time, and I hope that they figure some things out, because at this point, I would not hand her, if she was a teenager tomorrow, I would not hand her a cell phone or let her be on any of the social media platforms.
It's scary.
And I mean, it's scary enough
the Wild West in the law. I'm telling you, there's nothing settled.
Oh, no, we will see over the next, 10, 20 years, exponential growth in laws, regulation, cases that come down as a result of everything that's happened with artificial intelligence, and people that have been, we're going to see a lot of advancements that improves our society, improves technology, improves the way that we're, serve goods, products, services, but we're also going to see, some people that exploit that, some people that are harmed by that in some way, shape, or form, and a lot of laws, regulations, and probably clickbait stories here and there about what happened that was surprising or shocking.
The scariest thing and the hardest thing to me, and when you're talking about all this kind of stuff, the new stuff coming up, AI out of this, is that, and I include myself in it, is the people who are making the laws don't understand it. I don't understand it. I don't, so it's...
I don't. It would be great to have Chase Hawk on the podcast with us today, because
he's a 5-hour podcast.
He's our resident AI expert.
Exactly.
I don't think that's...
Close second.
Yeah,
close second.
I think he and I are probably neck and neck.
Yeah.
Okay.
You forget, I spend most of my time that you pay for learning about these types of things, because marketing revolves very heavily right now
she's
around.
telling us that she's only doing 50% of the job and some computers doing the rest.
I like it.
No.
We'll take that into consideration.
So maybe a computer does need to be a person. We can pay them.
ChatGPT.
Or not have to.
That's
no. ChatGPT could not do the things without me on the other end typing it in. Okay.
She's getting defensive now.
ChatGPT is my marketing assistant.
That's right. Actually, it saves us money because you got an assistant.
So now I'm never gonna never grow my department beyond.
It's like, nope, but we'll get you another laptop. You can have another little ChatGPT on that
one. Get multiple AI programs running at once.
Oh, I love it.
Oh man. Well, I think I kind of threw a surpriser there to talk about AI, because that's probably not it's a subject we'll talk about again, I'm sure.
Without question.
The whole thing was a surprise. The New Zealand.
This is a shotgun.
Well,
it's interesting.
Interesting
stuff in the news.
Sometimes I like no prep. Just come in. If you want to hear the real stuff, I'm gonna give it to you. You might not like it, but here we go.
The reality is, and we touch on this in episodes, is that we love to follow these high profile cases. Your Karen Reeds, like P. Diddy, that kind of thing. But because of the timing of when we record and when episodes come out, sometimes our information can be, behind, and we don't want to do that to our viewers. And so sometimes we try and pick things that might be a little bit more evergreen.
Yeah, we're not breaking news. We're trying to discuss the laws.
What she's trying to say is that we don't sit in here and record a podcast every day, post it every single day. We do it. We try to do it every other week, and sometimes we hit spot on where we can let one roll the minute that stuff is breaking. Other times, by the time we shoot it and it comes out the next week, some new stuff has come up. So the only thing that remains the same is that people complain about the Bud Light that Reed brings us to drink.
That's why I bring it, man. That's why I bring it.
Yeah. Well, and again, so a great note to leave on is, let us know what you thought about the episode today. We love your feedback in the comments, especially if it's information that adds to the story that maybe we didn't have time to put together in this, little limited time that we have to share each episode. So thanks for watching. Any parting words before we...
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. I told you yesterday on your birthday, Reed waited until today.
I veto all birthdays.
He wanted to do it in person, I guess.
Yeah,
he didn't forget.
Well,
no, absolutely. How could I?
To be fair, birthdays aren't as important to me as they were when, say, I was like,
We're too old for
in my
birthdays.
20s, where I used to celebrate it for like a whole month.
You're finally 30?
30 and 39 and
what did Tanya say the other day? One of our paralegals had a birthday last week as well, and she just told me, I'm 39 and some change.
I like that.
That's fine.
I'm going to use that. All right. Well, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you can be notified when new episodes come out. See ya.